A millionaire was taking his mother for a quiet walk through one of Denver's oldest public parks, unaware that this simple outing would change the course of his life forever. Sunday morning began with a rare calm that Matthew Calloway had not experienced in years. For the first time in a long while, he turned off his phone, leaving behind urgent meetings, investors' messages, and the restless numbers that haunted even his sleep. He wanted nothing more than to keep an old promise he had made to his mother. A simple walk, unhurried, free from the virtual world that separated him from real life. The sun leaned gently across Denver's sky, scattering warm golden light over the stone pathways. The scent of fresh popcorn blended with the fragrance of seasonal flowers, while children's laughter echoed through the park like innocent music. Helen Calloway walked beside her son, holding onto his arm, her steps slow but steady. She looked at him with the eyes of a mother who had raised her child alone, now seeing him as one of the most successful businessmen in the country. From the outside, the scene looked complete. A successful man strolling peacefully with his mother. Yet inside Matthew, there was a heavy emptiness, a void that neither wealth nor achievement could fill. Just 6 months earlier, his tech company had signed the largest deal in its history, propelling his fortune into the world of billionaires. Mansions, luxury cars, private jets, and invitations others only dreamed of became part of his life. And yet, as he passed a small lake in the park and saw a young couple pushing a baby stroller, a sudden pain pierced his chest. A silent jealousy and a longing for something he had only understood after losing it. Helen spoke gently as she adjusted her shawl. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. You've achieved everything, my son, yet you walk as if you've lost the most important thing." Matthew tried to smile, but the exhaustion in his eyes betrayed him. He avoided her gaze. Mothers always see what goes unsaid. He quickly changed the subject, pointing toward the lake with feigned nostalgia. "Do you remember how afraid I used to be of the carousel? I never rode it unless you were with me." She smiled. "I remember. You were scared, yet you smiled." Happiness, Matthew, isn't about how long moments last, but about who we share them with and our readiness for surprises. He was about to reply when they turned near the park's exit, and suddenly time stopped. On a wooden bench beneath a large shady tree, a woman lay asleep, leaning slightly to one side. Beside her were 3 baby strollers lined up neatly, each holding an infant fast asleep. To any passerby, it was an ordinary sight. To Matthew, it was not. His breath caught in his chest, and his eyes widened in shock. The woman was Paige, his ex-wife. The sounds of the park vanished. The noise of children and vendors dissolved, and everything around him faded into a heavy fog. Paige, the woman who had left his life 9 months ago, who he had been told moved to Spain to start over, was now lying before him, pale, exhausted, as if life itself had drained every ounce of strength from her. And beside her were not 1 child, but 3. One of the infants stirred and let out a soft whimper. Paige jolted awake from her restless sleep, quickly reaching out to check on the 3 strollers. Then she lifted her head, and her eyes met Matthew's. Her face froze. Shock gave way to shame, then fear, then a quiet surrender. She was no longer the woman he remembered. Dark circles surrounded her eyes, and her simple clothes bore the marks of hardship and relentless labor. She whispered hoarsely, "Matthew." He stepped forward instinctively, Helen following behind. Sensing that something serious was unfolding. "Paige, what are you doing here?" he asked, his voice breaking. She took a deep breath, gathering what little courage she had left, then gestured with a trembling hand toward the strollers. "They're your children." At first, he did not understand. A confused smile crossed his face, the kind that appears when the mind refuses to accept the truth. "What are you saying? That's impossible." She replied with painful calm. "9 months ago, you left before you knew. I was pregnant, and when I discovered I was carrying 3, I tried to reach you." She paused, then added softly, "I called. I sent messages, but my number was blocked. Then I got scared. I told myself you had chosen your life." Helen pressed a hand to her chest, nearly losing her balance. Matthew, meanwhile, felt the ground sway beneath him. Memories flooded back. The final night, the bitter argument, the cruel words spoken in anger, and the door he had closed without looking back. He approached one of the strollers slowly and looked at the 3 tiny faces. A nose he recognized, a chin he had seen in the mirror thousands of times. He extended his finger with a trembling hand, and one of the babies instinctively wrapped their tiny fingers around it, as if they had known him all along. Matthew broke completely. He bent down in front of Paige and said in a choked voice, "I'm here, and I should have been here from the very beginning." But the confession alone was not enough to fix everything. Days later, the case was brought to court to establish paternity and determine custody. Matthew sat in the courtroom, the man newspapers called the Emperor of Technology, unable to meet the camera's gaze. His entire focus was on the 3 strollers beside Paige. The judge asked him in a formal tone, "Were you aware of your former wife's pregnancy?" A long silence followed. Then Matthew answered with a sincerity few had ever heard from him. "I was aware that I left a woman who loved me, and I chose myself. That was my mistake." After several hearings, the ruling was issued: official establishment of paternity, joint custody, full legal responsibility toward the children, and mandatory psychological follow-up to ensure their stability. They all returned to Matthew's home, a vast, luxurious house that initially felt cold and empty. Money provided everything: nannies, doctors, comfortable cribs, but it could not buy peace of mind. Paige carried out her role in silence, afraid that her place there was temporary, that loneliness might return at any moment. Days passed slowly. Matthew learned to change diapers the same way he once learned to close deals. He learned that sleepless nights cannot be managed by commands, and that crying cannot be silenced with money. With every passing night, he felt something inside him slowly healing. As for Paige, she began to breathe again. The wound had not disappeared, but it no longer bled alone. One quiet evening, while Helen sat near the babies, softly singing to them, Matthew turned to Paige and said with honest calm, "I'm not asking you to forget the past. I'm not asking for a second chance. I'm only asking for a real one, for the sake of our children." She looked at him for a long moment, as if weighing years of pain on one side and the sincerity she now saw on the other. Then she said, "Love doesn't return the same, but it can return wiser." She slowly extended her hand. It was not a promise, but it was the beginning of a new path. In that moment, Matthew finally understood that life's greatest surprises do not come with wealth or success, but with the courage to face what we ran from and to take responsibility for those we love.